short with these red epics. This is before it was out.
Right, for like test shoots almost?
Yeah, exactly. Sort of let's see how this all works.
Right.
And I was the guinea. And we did it on this thing called the Atom rig, which was like the lightest rig for the epics at the time, and I'm sure it still is. And there was just, and we had a great time doing it, but we were having to work out a lot of kinks along the way. But it turned out it was beautiful. I mean, the epic is stunning.
Yeah, literally. Every project we're shooting on it. But I've seen that 3D rig for the epics, and I think I saw it on Peter Jackson's latest Hobbit behind the scenes thing, and there's like freaking 30 epics, and the rigs
he bought like a ton of
nuts.
them. Yeah.
And it's like one shoots into a mirror, the other one it's way out. It's like,
yeah, well, we used a beam splitter, which is essentially for the kids at home.
Yeah.
Looks like this, and so this one is shooting through a half beam, a two-way mirror, which essentially is like this, and then the one that's shooting down here is shooting up into that two-way mirror. So it finds your interocular, which is about 3 inches apart, and that's how you can separate and have two eyes and make the wonderful world of 3D. If it's done correctly.
Right. No, that's way out. And
a lot of it's funny. Like you'd think that all of this is like math, but it's kind of guessing.
Is it?
Yeah, it's kind of a big guessing game. Jason Chen was behind setting this whole thing up, and he's a friend of mine and also worked on Avatar. And they have Just Cause 3D is his new company. And they were like, let's do these two shorts. He and I co-wrote one, and then I co-wrote another with another friend.
Right.
That was based off of a feature that I wrote called The Necrotic, a post-apocalyptic sort of zombie-ish movie.
Cool, yeah.
With no zombies. And when we were doing it, I obviously had just done 2.5 years of 3D, but when you really have to work in it, you start to completely understand the behind the scenes side of 3D, and it's so difficult and such a process, and so there is a ton of math to it.
Right.
But when it comes down to it, and you're having to figure out where that interocular is and how it's going to look 3D at the end, it's kind of a guess. Like not a guess, but it's kind of they're just spotting it, eye spotting it, and they bring the two images together. Almost to where, almost overlapping, but they leave it a little bit apart, and they go, okay, that's going to work.
Yeah.
And then we go and we shoot it, and it all worked. So
yeah, and I mean and that's amazing. I think especially for this type of show and talking about first-time filmmakers and talking about guys that are coming in to the business now. And yourself, obviously, have been in this business for a long time, and now off of this movie.
Not that long.
No. But you've been in the business. It's like, wow. Yeah. But coming off the biggest movie of all time, then all of a sudden, but then you're also making your own ways as a filmmaker on short films and whatnot. You know what I mean? And so you're able to see both sides of the coin, from a huge mega studio, mega movie to your own short. And the process of that.
I did a lot of. When I grew up in Portland, Oregon, and I did a lot of little shorts, fun shorts with friends and my cousins, and just messing around doing stupid things. And I think I wanted to be a clown originally because I realized that I wouldn't get beat up if I just fell on my face and made people laugh. I got beat up a lot as a kid. I was smaller back then, and then I shortly, probably in the middle school. Or early high school, I realized, you can't really make a career as a clown. Although if you are a clown out there and making a career, God bless you. There's nothing wrong with that. But I simply don't have the patience for it.
Right.
But so I tried my hand at the wonderful world of acting, because we're really in a drought here of actors in Los Angeles. So there's just simply not enough.
I know.
And I felt like it was maybe a mission. Maybe God sent me here because of this drought that was going on in 2001, 2002 when I came down here. I came down here, and I kind of always looked at it like a business, as much as I enjoyed acting. I always wanted to do stuff behind the scenes. I always wanted to produce and direct and write and
because that's you were doing that already, right?
I was kind of doing that when I was younger, and then I wrote a short play, like a 30-page play in high school in college that got put up, at the college, Southern Oregon University.
Nice.
And then I did 2 years at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival and came down here afterwards. And I worked at Circuit City.
Here.
When Circuit City was around.
Right. Yeah.
When we were the king, when Circuit City was
Remember?
the king.
Yeah, of course. But no Best Buy.
Exactly.
And then
Forget
Best Buy came around, you're like,
and
who's
we
those
were all
guys?
like, Best Buy's not going to last. They don't work on commission.
Right.
No, none of their employees are going to sell anything. That was the big thing to us. Is like we're making minimum wage, but we had commission. So the only thing I really knew about electronics at that. Now I'm a nerd. Now I love electronics. But at the time, I just knew how to look at the screen and tell you which number was my commission.
Right.
And so if it was a Sony or a Hitachi or Mitsubishi or whatever it was, I would figure out what number was highest and just sell people that one.
Right. There you go.
Because I'm the equivalent of a slumlord in the TV world. But I knew that it was gonna. I was sort of like, I was this tall, goofy guy, and I was like, how do I get into this industry? And
right.
I realized that commercials was a good sort of in, because I wasn't getting any leverage in
acting.
In trying to the commercials is still acting.
Right.
We're offending a lot of people in this thing.
Yeah.
Film work. Yeah, in film work and television work.
Yes.
And so I ended up just doing a series of commercials, and that sort of led to, we took all of the commercials. My manager was brilliant, Rochelle Ryan. She was actually my agent from Portland, and she came down to Los Angeles with a group before I had, I was in college at the time, but she had come down, brought a group down from Portland, and so she managed me down here. And she said, why don't we just take all of your commercials, put them on a demo reel, and then we'll send these out to the casting directors.
Right.
I was like, that's a good idea. And the reps are like, that's a horrible idea. That's never been done. Why do people want to see your commercials? But I had just enough, I had interesting commercials because I wasn't, selling.
Because you were interesting.
Because I wasn't selling Dove's, I wasn't the, the good-looking 35-year-old.
Exactly, right?
6 o'clock shadow man that
now you have like a
was
7
selling
o'clock
Dove
shadow.
soap. I have a 70 o'clock shadow.
Right.
A 70 o'clock. And so we did that. We put it all together, and we took it to, sent it out to everybody. Right. And this was kind of this honestly may have been on VHS. That's how crazy the world. That's how fast the world has changed in the last 7 years.
Put it on tape. Literally.
Yeah, but it may have been DVD. To be fair. And Jeannie McCarthy saw the tape and said, let's bring him in for this untitled Ben Stiller project, and that ended up being Dodgeball, and I ended up booking it. And
so that was obviously
I never stepped on a set. I mean, besides commercials, I'd really never stepped on a set, and I was probably an a-hole on my on Dodgeball, just because. But Vince, I was on Vince's team, and he was a sweetheart and took me under his wing, and and that led to all this other crazy.
Yeah, so
stuff.
Dodgeball was the one then. Absolutely right.
Yeah, Dodgeball was like from doing nothing to doing a studio picture. And
then boom.
And then I've had to work hard for my career.
Of course, yeah. So now having worked with all the biggest guys, how do you translate that now into your own work as a filmmaker?
Well, I consider my work on Avatar graduate school, since for the next decade or so probably won't be able to go to graduate school.
So you start Avatar 2 soon, right?
And yeah, and then we're doing 2 and 3.
Back to back?
It's all in someone else's brain right now. I can't really talk about a lot of it, but I'm I'm
basically
assuming
you're booked up for like 3 years straight.
I'm assuming that I'm going to be on that train for a long time, but again, it's all in Jim Cameron's head, and I'm excited for whatever the future holds with that.
Yeah.
You like that PC stupid answer?
It's
Sorry,
fine.
Kids. Boring.
Sorry. No, nothing here. Nothing to see here. Nothing to see
here.
Move on.
Nothing to see here.
That's not talking.
Yeah. So, but I mean, doing that movie was spectacular to be a part of that.
You got a doll now.
You
got a toy. It's like you made it.
Yeah.
It's not a doll. It's an action figure.
Oh, there may be dolls. I don't know. Maybe there are.
But you're like.
Yeah.
But I hear from a lot of buddies that are like, dude, I got an action figure. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's one of those kind of moments that's very surreal. I mean, of course, everything else is surreal. But then all of a sudden you're like, you have
you have an action. You have like we
Yeah,
go and do
yeah.
the face thing, you know, where they put the
Right.
mud over you and then they make that into a little action figure, and that's just very strange.
That's what I'm saying. It's almost more surreal. I hear
Yeah.
than actually being in.
But
Yeah,
my doll, it's funny. My mom called me and said, I went to Fred Meyer. This is the local place in Portland, like
Right.
your not really a Best Buy, but it's like a Best Buy and a Ralph's put together, right?
Got it, right.
And she's like, I went there, and you're never gonna believe this. Your toy is sold out. And I'm like, yeah, Mom, because it's Portland, and you and my aunts are the only ones that are buying my
Right,
toy.
right.
In every other place in the world,
It's like
not-
overstock.
It's overstock, exactly.
That's funny.
But I think that was a bigger moment for my mother
that's
than
awesome.
anything. And I didn't push too hard. I let her believe what she needed
Sure,
to believe.
Mom, it's over. It's
Yeah,
gone.
yeah, man. That's because I'm obviously the most popular in Avatar. No, but it was fascinating and just being, and I'm kind of a sponge, and I've always been one, and I've learned on the go, and I right after I did Dodgeball, I knew that I was like, okay, I want to direct something, so
Right.
I set out to try to find something, and I through my publicist met this guy who had a great story called Miles from Home that he wrote.
The running movie. It's a jogging.
No, it's
I've read that script. It's so weird how it's so
the
funny.
race walk script?
Yes.
That's funny.
I read it. I got it. I don't know. It was like an old manager of mine. Like, yeah, this is from Joel David Moore. He's an Avatar. I'm like, I know who that is.
Yeah.
And I read it.
It never ended up going, but I love that. I love that project.
he was
That's
like, yeah.
Joe Scrow is the writer of that, and he's a genius, and he's going to be a huge writer.
He was
in
like,
this
yeah,
town.
the guy who wants to direct. I'm like, yeah, it was funny, but I read that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's a
small world,
good
but
it's a
yeah.
good project.
It's
But no, this was
fun.
called Miles from Home, and it was me and Mercedes McNabb,
Okay.
who I had just done Hatchet with, and we went off and did this, and they said, look, we just want you to direct this and play the lead, and I
Right.
said absolutely, and pitched my thoughts for it and ideas for it, and we went off and did it, and we shot it on 16 millimeter for the people who have forgot that there are film.
Right.
There actually, at some point in life, was celluloid that was being dragged through light to
Yeah.
make images.
Click, click, yep.
So we shot it on 16, and my DP at the time was a fascinating guy that again, this was my first project, and I was probably slow as shit and didn't know exactly what I was doing. But he had all the patience in the world and got us through it. And his name is Eric Steelberg, and he obviously went on to do Juno and Up in the Air. And,
Wow.
many. Well, he actually started in Quinceañera and moved on to do
did he
all
do
of
that,
those.
huh?
Yeah, that's
Wow.
how he started. But anyway, so he was my first DP. So I really got like the luxury that I
having-
didn't understand at the time of
Right.
having an amazing eye behind
Right.
the camera, and I totally thought that I was the best thing ever because I figured that my entire vision was coming to life because
Look,
of
it's
me.
all- yeah.
Let alone,
That's funny.
I'm paired up with this guy who goes on to obviously be one of the,
Huge.
one of the most fascinating artistic DPs in the industry.
Right.
And so, but I learned a lot from that, and that ended up going to South by Southwest, and because of that, I ended up being able to, through piece by piece, get the funding for Spiral, which was the feature that I wrote with my writing partner Jeremy Boring. And we
And
went
that's
off and
out
made
now,
that in
correct?
Portland, Oregon, and it won Santa Barbara Film Festival. And then Anchor Bay picked it up for theatrical release in 2008.
Nice.
So it came out when I was doing
Avatar.
Avatar.
Yeah.
It came out. My most proud moment came with the silliest movie that I had ever done. On the same day, on the same weekend, Spiral came out with Hottie and the Naughty.
Oh, that's
So for the people at home,
Hottie and the Naughty.
sometimes you take one for the team.
There you go.
But that was all before Avatar. So
Right.
but
So,
you know,
so
but
there's
also
no more
that's-
Hottie Naughty 2.
That's
not
the
happening.
nice thing about being a character actor as well is that you can jump and you can do a bunch of things and nothing's really going to hurt you.
Right, yeah.
Besides porn.
Right.
Which I'm at this day and age doesn't hurt you either.
It's true.
Apparently you just become a millionaire and marry a guy for 72 days and move on with your life.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Right?
God
Oh,
bless
that's
her
awful.
soul.
I like the Kardashians.
God bless her soul.
God bless her. God bless her.
So, I mean, that's awesome. I mean, congratulations on all the success. It's really amazing. We all look forward to all the new stuff from you, not only as a filmmaker but also in your acting work. And
Thank you.
Any last bit of sage advice for young filmmakers coming out there out the box and.
Well, I did a couple. Are we out of time?
No,
the
no.
deal?
Fucking
Oh, yeah,
keep
yeah.
rolling.
Because I have a couple other shorts that I'd love to talk about, and that'll be sort of.
Let's do it. Yeah, there's no time.
Now I'm looking for time. This looks really good for coming right before Charlie Rose. And after I did Spiral, I moved on to do a couple shorts. One for Funny or Die with Zachary Levi, who was also in Spiral.
Right.
It was called Byron Phillips Found, and it was based off of a weird dream that I had, and it was like one of those dreams where right when you're waking up, you're not really completely asleep, but you're kind of daydreaming, but it's the morning.
Right.
And it was like about this idea that like I had lost my soul somehow. I think it was a cry for help. but I ended up writing this short about this kid who had a heart failure and woke up without his soul. He had just sort of been glitched from his soul and separated from his soul. And so in the short, his soul is walking around.
Wow.
So there's two Zachs in the short. But his soul ends up being attached to this girl that he would be in love with had he had a soul.
Nice.
But he can't be in love.
Right.
And so he's trying to figure out how to get his soul unattached from this person and bring it back to him. And it's very quirky and strange, and obviously sounds strange.
Shadow thing.
But it turned out great and did well, and Funny or Die picked it up, and then I wanted to do something another short before I went into to doing a feature.
Right.
And my friend Jared Einson brought me this project called Hours Before, which was a fascinating idea. It was a story. It was like a 60 or 70 page story that this guy, James Tuverson, had written. And it was about the sort of, imagine the moments before two kids went and shot up Columbine.
Right.
It's that kind of thing. And what could happen, maybe how that could have been stopped, or the sort of the scenarios that could be played out in that. And so I loved it.
Yeah, I like the way you shot it too.
Well, I love the idea, and I obviously it was just two people in a room for 15 minutes, and so I had to do a lot of sort of thinking about how it was going to be shot, because it was just going to get boring if it was just the two people saying lines back and forth.
Right.
So we really stole Paul Greengrass style.
Yeah.
But I mean, we had the camera sort of as a character in it, and it was moving the entire time, and I kept my DP sweating the entire time, because he basically Dustin Perlman, who's a genius, and we have a series of things we're doing together. He did he did Hours, and he's doing something else with me, but he held a camera with a zoom lens, and with two fingers crashed back and forth with the zoom and focused all on one hand on a little roller stool.
Right.
So he would just be literally sliding back and forth, crashing with. I mean, it was ingenious, and I'd be right next to him, like a sitcom director, going, "All right, push forward. All right, now pop up, pop down." And my wonderful two actors would be doing their thing, and it was a very interesting. This is sort of like an interesting behind the scenes aspect is it was very interesting, because we had the script, and I had all these ideas about the theme, right? But I didn't know exactly what I was going to get when I got in there.
Right.
And so with these two actors, I knew that they could both do it fine, but I also wanted to push and find out what I could get. And a lot of these raw moments that happen in that short come from me sitting outside of frame, and just throwing them ideas, like throwing them, not even lines sometimes, just like thoughts about where they were. And then they would take that and sort of readdress whatever line or whatever piece we were on shooting, and go, and sort of bring that idea or whatever I just said to them into what they were shooting. And half of the short ended up being these little moments.
Yeah, it was great.
Because I really wanted it to feel raw, and it was more important for it to feel real and raw than for it to feel cinematic in the sense that, you know, they're saying the correct thing at the right moment. So, yeah, so it was a fascinating, and we ended up doing a series of festivals with that, which was, I was actually really, that's my proudest directing moment, only because of that process that we went through, and because it was,
and it
there
worked.
was no, and yeah, I think,
because
I think that
all this crazy
really,
stuff,
all
because
this
you don't
crazy-
know if it's going to work.
Exactly.
You're just like, let's fucking hope it works. Right?
And because of the way that we shot it, I knew that I had to edit it because there was no way I was going to explain to anyone else. So I ended up editing that, and it was my first time editing anything that I've done.
And what's funny is I saw, I'm like, nice editing. And then after the credits, I'm like, oh shit, he edited this too.
Well, when it's that weird, you kind of...
But you also cut
I understand the cadence.
Right.
I knew how I was wanting to put it
you
together.
cut in the school, you cut in the flashes, you know. It was
Yeah. And we shot all that on 8mm at Dustin's old, like, I think it was a kindergarten, although you can't really
It's like
tell
boys'
because it's so
locker room.
fast.
Right. Yeah.
Boys' locker, like that whole thing
Right.
was like in an old, maybe it was a middle school. So yeah, we cheated that for a high school.
Nice.
But all of those, again, we knew how that was going to look, and it's so hard to try to explain that.
Right.
But yeah, so that's arguably my proudest moment as a director, just because there were no names in it. It was
Right.
it was two unknown guys that have done
In a
some
room.
work, but it wasn't going off of the names of the actors, and it really we got into pretty much every festival that we submitted for.
Nice.
So.
Now you have your own production company now.
No, I don't.
You don't?
I don't. We used to have coattails, but we all kind of went and did our own.
So are you working on new stuff for yourself as well?
Yeah, I'm working on a project that I'm going to direct coming up shortly called Killing Winston Jones.
Okay.
It's a dark comedy in kind of the quirky comedy Byron Phillips style.
Right.
About two families, a black and a white family that grew up next to each other. Both fathers are PE teachers, and they're fighting for the prize of the school, and it's very strange and offbeat, and Harold and Maude and Wes Anderson-y and everything that I like. It's an ingenious script. I can say that because I didn't write it, and I just fell in love with it, and so we're putting that together right now.
Nice.
For shooting next year before I get stolen by Mr. Cameron again.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, man, dude, I appreciate you coming on the show. I mean, that's all amazing, and I wish you all the best as always.
Thank you very much.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks, dude.
Great.
Yeah.
Rock on, dude. Hi, I'm Joel David Moore, and you're watching Shorts Showcase. Say that 3 times fast.
Yeah. You get a picture with you.
Yeah.
You gotta throw it up on Facebook.
There you go.
That's right.